Good evening. Welcome to Satellite Showtime. I'm Pat Olson. Satellite Showtime is brought to you by our fine corporate sponsors, including Luxor North America and Coltronics Incorporated. You may be wondering about the hat. Well, the hat is a souvenir from the Space STTI Tulsa show this summer. From Tulsa, we'll be telling you about an announcement from space, and also during this program we will bring another segment from technician Mike Gustafson, and he'll be telling you about the satellites. All this when Satellite Showtime continues.
Here's the perfect pair from Luxor, the 9550 receiver and the 9534 actuator. It's a totally integrated satellite TV reception system. The Luxor 9550 remote-controlled satellite receiver. 24 channels, selected, fine-tuned, programmed for automatic recall. 4 different audio systems, built-in RF modulator, automatic polarization, 2-speed scan, video inversion control, AFC defeat, Dolby noise reduction, and more. It's married to the Luxor 9534 antenna actuator, an automatic satellite selection by remote control, all at the touch of a button, with remarkable ease and accuracy thanks to the Luxor handheld remote commander. You wanted this consumer-friendly system, and Luxor has delivered. The 9550 receiver and the 9534 actuator by Luxor, a leader in radio and TV technology since 1923.
Want to know more about satellite TV? Then go to the source for product reviews and how-tos. We're on the road and out in space, and sometimes in very cold places, with features and technical reports. It's all in Satellite TV. That's only $19.95 for 12 big issues of STV magazine. Call now, 1-800-438-2020, and get this LCD calendar clock free with your subscription. That's 12 big issues of STV magazine and the clock for only $19.95. The number again is 1-800-438-2020. 1-800-438-2020. Call now.
Welcome back. At the Space STTI show in Tulsa, Oklahoma, Space announced that 2 bills are gaining support in the U.S. House of Representatives. Those bills are H.R. 1769 and H.R. 1840. H.R. 1769, the anti-scrambling bill, now has 21 co-sponsors, and H.R. 1840, the bill that calls for a fair marketing plan for scrambled programming, now has 16 co-sponsors. At an anti-scrambling rally in Tulsa, one of the sponsors of Bill H.R. 1840 urged a crowd to support both bills.
And when you write a personal letter to your member of Congress and ask them to support this legislation, there is nothing more effective, I assure you, and I would encourage you to do that.
At the opening ceremonies of the show, Chuck Hewitt of Space announced his group's board of directors had just passed a resolution. He tells about that resolution here.
Space should vigorously support a level playing field in the area of distribution of scrambled signals to satellite earth station owners both in and out of cable areas. Space opposes any distribution scheme that would have the effect of excluding independent, non-cable, non-programmer distributors, and opposes a proposed distribution plan through a cable industry cooperative. Space further supports the entrepreneurial spirit of all advertiser-supported services that wish to serve the rapidly expanding earth station market in an unscrambled mode in order to maximize the nationwide viewing audience of these services. Space encourages these services to utilize their common sense and not succumb to the anti-competitive posture of the cable industry advocates that are attempting to force every programmer to scramble by threatening to drop their services. Programmers, we will stand behind you. Space also authorizes its counsel to investigate the regulatory and copyright effects of scrambling superstations. In commenting on our resolution, Space Chairman Taylor Howard stated that there is no fear in the earth station industry of scrambling. it is appropriate that the creative community be paid. The fear is of an anti-competitive environment imposed by program suppliers on the cable industry. We believe in the freedom of choice for every program supplier to decide whether to scramble or not. The pressure being placed on these services is intolerable. We are prepared to fully pursue this issue in the Congress and the courts. Consumers are entitled to receive programming at the lowest possible cost. This will happen only if there is a competition to the cable operator in the delivery of both facilities and programming. A cable industry leader said, quote, birthright is at stake, quote, meaning the cable industry's birthright. I say it's the consumer's right to be informed, educated, and entertained that is at stake.
Coming right up on Satellite Showtime, Mike Gustafson will tell you what makes the satellites go round, and we'll talk to a man who went to great lengths to attend the Space STTI show in Tulsa. All that coming up.
Welcome to the world of Satellite TV Opportunities, the magazine that brings you inside information on successful marketing and sales techniques, details the latest in new technology, and lets you see how other dealers increase their sales and profits.
Satellite TV Opportunities magazine is the marketing techniques magazine for satellite TV dealers. Our single purpose is to help dealers increase their sales and their profits through improved marketing techniques.
Satellite TV Opportunities offers insight into the latest trends in marketing, profiles thriving businesses, and surveys what TVRO buyers are really after. Subscribe today by calling 1-800-922-2812. For $25, you get a full year subscription to Satellite TV Opportunities, a magazine full of new ideas that will help your business thrive. 1-800-922-2812. Call today. MasterCard and Visa accepted.
Welcome back to Satellite Showtime. For the past 2 weeks, you've been able to see Mike Gustafson on our program. He's the West Coast editor and technical editor for STV magazine. At the Tulsa show, I was able to ask him how he became involved in this industry.
My earliest days were spent at the microwave firms in Santa Clara Valley, so-called Silicon Valley, and that's where I was first introduced to the higher frequencies that we use in the satellite TVRO industry. At California Microwave, to be specific, we installed the very first uplink for that company in 1974-75, and that's when I was introduced to the concept of very large round things that were antennas, and the idea of transmitting signals to satellites, receiving them back from satellites, and we built a video receiver just so that we could watch ANIC, which was the only satellite at that time, as a bootleg type of operation. We did it on the sly and watched it. And but we were building our uplinks and downlinks for California Microwave at that time in about 1975. After that, I went to work for Stanford University. Did some work there. Wasn't satellite work. I left Stanford in about 80 and went to work for a company which was Equatorial Communications. And in that regard, they were all a communications satellite company. That's all they did. So commercially, I was there, and then at that time, I became involved through the good offices of Taylor Howard with the home TVRO market in about 1980, and slowly gravitated into this industry, and now I'm full-time in this industry.
And working as West Coast editor for STV magazine.
And technical editor for STV magazine. Right.
Mike, why do you enjoy doing segments such as the one you do on Satellite Showtime?
What makes you think I enjoy them? Actually, I have always enjoyed teaching classes, and I have taught some night school courses in electronics, and to me it's just a way of disseminating information. And I find that that's one thing that people need the most is information. If I have the information and I can convey it, then so be it, and I have no problem with that. And so to me it's an idea of being able to just spread the word and not hide the information.
Now here's Mike again to talk about satellites. Note, in this segment, Mike mentions a project being done by STV magazine. Well, that project is now completed. Now here's Mike.
Last time we spent a while talking about
the uplink itself. We got a tour through Equatorial Communications uplink. This time we're going to be speaking on the satellites themselves. We'll try to get into a little bit of detail on how they operate, what keeps them up there, and how they help you see what you're seeing right now. So let's get into that. First, a little history on the so-called Clark belt. The satellites are in what are called a geostationary orbit. That is to say, they're sitting 22,300 miles directly above the equator, spaced along a circle that's drawn around the Earth. They are rotating at a speed which makes them appear as though they don't move in relationship to the Earth. That's why they're geostationary, that is to say, stationary over a single point on the ground. We, from our location in the United States, can see 25 of those satellites. That concept of the geostationary arc was first discovered or thought of and written about by Arthur C. Clarke Jr. Mr. Clarke wrote in, I believe it was Wireless World in 1934, about the concept of having repeater stations spaced out in space above the equator at some distance where they would be stationary and they could cover the whole world with their broadcasts. That's the value, is they're so far away that it's very easy for them to broadcast over the whole United States. So that explains why they are where they're located. They cannot be located anywhere else. If they were off the arc, above or below it, they would eventually retrograde and fall into the Earth. In fact, even on the arc, they do have a little bit of a trouble staying up there. The lifetime of a satellite is not determined by the electronics on board, but on the station-keeping fuel. Once a month, the satellite is updated, that is to say, they accelerate it back into orbit. You will never notice this with your 10-foot dish, but if you had a 40 or 50-foot dish, you would find that the satellite would walk in and out of your pointing position. So that explains the Clark belt and how the satellites stay there. Now, just as an artist's representation, let me show you how they look like above the equator. Here is a chart courtesy of Westat Communications that shows all 25 U.S. domestic satellites in orbit that's covered by the United States. As you can see, they are spaced all along in here, all transmitting to the United States. Now, each of these satellites has a different design and a different function. Let me discuss now the different types of satellites there are. In the very first broadcast, I alluded to the fact that there was a body-stabilized satellite and a spin-stabilized satellite. Now, each of these satellites has a particular value, just like Fords and Chevys. RCA likes the fact that their satellite stays perfectly still in orbit. It's rotating around the Earth, but yet it is not within itself rotating. The solar panels extend out like giant paddles on a boat, and the antenna transmits back to the Earth. It's a body-stabilized bird. Hughes Aircraft, on the other hand, likes to spin their satellites. This shell spins at 50 RPM. All of the electronics inside is despun and not moving at all. An electric motor spins the opposite direction and spins this dish pointing to the Earth so it doesn't move. Now let me show you just a little bit finer detail of this satellite, the Hughes satellite. Now this happens to be a Westar 4, but Westar 5 and Galaxy all look the same. You can see just a little bit more detail of the spacecraft. We have the PAM nozzle and its motor. We have the different TWTs around the side and the electronics and feed horn assembly with the dish. The little aperture sticking up here is actually the command and telemetry antenna and is used to keep the spacecraft where it belongs. But this whole shell is, this shell here is spun. Now there's solar cells on here, and the solar cells collect the energy that keeps the spacecraft in operation. So they're constantly spinning, and as they spin around facing the sun, they in fact operate and feed batteries on board the spacecraft that keep the system running. Now, let's look at the interior of the electronics of a satellite. Now this little diagram, we won't go into it, but kind of shows you the receive antenna that we transmit to. Remember, we're transmitting in the 5.9 to 6.4 gigahertz to the satellite. Then all the electronics that makes the satellite operational, and then the transmit antennas that transmit back to us in 3.7 to 4.2 gigahertz. Now these banks here of amplifiers are 5 watters. The particular satellite I'm showing you was an all 5-watt satellite. Satellites come in many different power levels. There's 5-watt satellites, 7.5 watt, 8.5 watt, and 9 watt satellites. The 9-watt satellites are the most powerful, and those would be the Galaxy satellites that are currently brand new in orbit. The Westar 4s, as an example, are 7.5s, and SATCOM-3, your most famous satellite, has a combination of 5-watt and 8.5-watt transponders, or channels, if you will. Now, you've seen some of these pictures before, but this is a picture of a Westar in orbit around the United States and transmitting back to the U.S. It just gives you some idea of what we're looking at here. This next picture, which is upside down, that's all right, now it's right side up, is of Westar 4 in its bay about ready to be tested in a vacuum chamber. What they're going to do here with this satellite is they're going to put it up into a vacuum chamber, simulating space. They'll turn on a bunch of very bright lights to simulate the sun, and they'll see what happens to the satellite when they do that. They'll actually be spun. This table here will actually spin the satellite at 50 RPM, just like it will be in orbit. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the satellite for a moment. The satellite has, when it's launched, liquid propellant. This liquid propellant is fixed. That is, they fill it up once. It's like buying a car. They tell you you've got 12 gallons of gas in the car, and when it runs out, you throw the car away. Well, that's the same thing with the satellite. They fill up the fuel once, they launch it into orbit. When they run out of fuel, they throw the satellite away. So the electronics is not the determining factor on the lifetime of a satellite as much as it is the station-keeping fuel. The station-keeping fuel, once a month, is expended to put the satellite, both spin it back up, in the case of a Westar satellite, and also to put it back into orbit. Because of the fact that the Earth is so close, 22,000 miles, it still exerts gravity and tries to pull the satellite out of orbit. So once a month or once every maybe 2 months, they have to accelerate the spacecraft and put it back into orbit. So the fuel determines how long the satellite will actually operate. The satellite can be considered really nothing more than a repeater. Anything it receives, it changes the frequency, obviously from 5.9 gigahertz down to 3.7 gigahertz. It down converts it, if you will, and then retransmits it. It repeats it. It doesn't do anything else to it. It's transparent in that regard. So essentially we can consider it just a repeater in the sky for us. It repeats 24 channels. Each channel, or transponder as they're called in the industry, is 40 megahertz wide, and the video or audio, depending on what you happen to be receiving off the satellite, is put into each individual channel. There are 12 channels on vertical polarization and 12 channels on horizontal polarization. Now, we'll spend more time on polarization in the future, but fundamentally that's the only way we can space 24 channels within the satellite band that's allowed. Those 24 channels are interleaved with vertical on one and horizontal on the other. That's how we fit them. We'll show you a little bit more about that on another time. Now, once it's transmitted in this vertical horizontal polarization at 5 or 9 watts, whatever it happens to be, it has to travel back to the Earth. The footprint of the satellite is very, very critical. As just an interest point, when they design these footprints, they never ever know for sure what the footprint is going to look like until it's gone into orbit. And then we have no way of really testing it. Well, Satellite TV magazine has embarked upon a very interesting program. We're actually measuring the footprint of all the satellites in orbit at this time. It's an enormous project. It's going to take months to do, but eventually we will generate a bunch of charts just like this one. This chart was generated by a computer on the ground, and they just hope that it makes the projected power levels. They don't know for sure. Western Union, as an example, never has measured the power levels of Westar 4 across the whole country. They measure them in a few spots, but not necessarily all the way around. Anyhow, the point is that satellite power is distributed across the whole United States. It obviously can't be tailored perfectly to the United States because nothing is perfect. So power that falls out into the ocean is lost unless Charlie the Tuna happens to have a TVRO system. But essentially, the people in Denver, as an example, receive a lot more power, in this case 37 dBW, that's dB above 1 watt, whereas out here on the West Coast, the so-called fringe area, and I'm speaking of the footprint, not necessarily our political background, is 34 dBW. So there's a difference there, you can see, of about 3 dB, which is quite a bit of change. So the closer you are to the edge of the country, the less power you have, therefore the larger antenna you'll have to get good, clear reception. The final last thing I think I should cover about satellites is that they are an electronic item, just like your TV set, just like your microwave oven. They get tired, and as they get tired, they lose power. So whereas right now we're at a very unique period in the satellite life in that we've got a lot of new satellites in orbit that are very powerful, with time they will degrade. The lifetime of most satellites is between 7 and 10 years. And so at the end of its lifetime it will be very weak. So yes, right now 6-foot dishes will probably work just fine, or in fact do work just fine on Galaxy, but in 10 years I wonder if they will. In 5 years I wonder if they will. The point is, you have to have an antenna large enough to handle this kind of power loss over time. So I think that wraps up the antenna, or the satellite portion of our discussion. Next time we're going to be talking about the TVRO antenna itself, and we'll be getting into your system at home. And to help me out a little bit, to tell me what you want to hear and how I can answer some of your questions, please drop me a line to Mike Gustafson, Post Office Box 20700, San Jose, California, 95120, and I'll answer the letters on the air, and it'll give me some idea of which direction you'd like this broadcast to go. Till next time, thank you and good day.
Thanks, Mike. Coming up on Satellite Showtime, you'll find out what it took to make a man travel 400 miles in one day.
For a limited time only, you can receive Channel Guide for a special reduced rate. For just $9, you will receive 8 weeks of Channel Guide, a month of Galaxy One magazine, and the all-new 1985 Whole Earth Station catalog. That's a $20 value for just $9. Then close check and address, and you'll start receiving the original grid format for satellite TV. Due to this low price, no phone orders may be taken. Write today. Channel Guide, Department 808A, P.O. Box 1633, Englewood, Colorado, 80150. Do it today.
Ed Miller isn't just your average satellite TV enthusiast. He traveled many miles to attend the Space STTI show in Tulsa, Oklahoma. At the show, he told me about himself and his interest in the home TVRO industry. Ed Miller, you are a person who owns a home satellite system, and you decided to come here from Kansas just to see the show?
Yes, I was interested in what was available. I try to keep up just for my own interest in what's available on the market today. And I thought that this wasn't too far from home, and I'd come down and just spend the day and look and see what's available now.
How far is not too far from home?
Oh, a couple hundred miles.
And you came here just for one day?
Yes, yeah.
What have you picked up so far? What do you see?
Oh, I'm seeing the very big computer-based systems that seem to be coming out now in the satellite receiving industry.
What kind of people are these that you're meeting?
Very interesting, very helpful people. In fact, I just talked to a person a while ago because I had a slight little bug in my system, and they were very helpful, told me what I could probably do to solve it, and if it didn't solve it, to send back the part I needed, and they would take care of me. Very good.
Would you like to be more involved in the satellite industry?
No, I'm happy where I am. I subscribe to some of the publications, STV magazine, for example, and read it every month, and so I feel like I know, and it's kind of interesting when neighbors come in and I can talk about my system and talk about their systems and stuff, and it kind of makes me feel good that way. So,
any temptations to become a dealer?
I have thought about it, but I don't have the time. I'm employed as a school teacher, and that's my real job, and there are too many dealers now that are working out of garages and things like that, that I don't think that's the direction to go.
What do you think is the biggest worry among people in the satellite industry? What are you most worried about?
So many products, so many different companies getting into it, that I think that there are going to be people caught that will have systems that are no longer being produced, and they're going to have problems with service and stuff like that sometime down the road. We're too new. But that's great because it gives opportunities for people too. But it means that the purchaser has to look very carefully at what he's buying before he makes the purchase.
Because so many companies now are also failing.
Yeah.
You never know when a company's going to fail.
Yes, that's the point. And so, you know, you get a system and the dealer's no longer there, the company's no longer there, and you have a service problem with it, and what do you do? So that's what I think the real problem is.
Do you think that problem will be over sometime soon?
Oh, I expect within the next 2 years it'll probably be over. You know, things will settle down. the fallouts will be falling out, and you'll have your major satellite companies in the business, I think.
What do you like best about being an owner of a home satellite system?
The freedom to watch almost anything that I want to watch. Come home from work on Friday night and you don't have to watch cars jumping rivers and things like that. You know, you can have a selection of other programming. I like particularly the PBS schedule where you can get the 3 different time slots of the PBS programming. You don't have to watch it just at the time the local PBS station's broadcasting. I'd also like to say that PBS, I know PBS has mentioned that they are not too happy with home satellite systems at one time. At least I read a letter to that effect. And I continue to support the local PBS station with monthly contribution, because I realize that unless those of us who have home satellite systems support those networks, then they can't afford to be there.
Taylor Howard of Chaparral Communications and also of the Space Board of Directors was also at the Tulsa show. There he gave an update on sales of home satellite systems.
As nearly as I can tell from the statistics that we collect within space from primarily manufacturers, and my own knowledge of manufacturing and from what I've talked to with our dealer board in the field, the industry in terms of units sold has very nearly doubled since the same period for last year. Some manufacturers see that, some don't. This is remarkable growth for an industry such as ours, a new industry, and for what I hear every morning when I listen to the radio or the television, I hear that we're in a soft economy. The consumer electronics industry sees the softness, the computer people certainly see that softness. We have to be one of the rare industries. We're not seeing that softness. Now, we have not doubled in the last year. We're somewhere between 10 and 20% below doubling for the same first half of this year as it was the first half of last year. Some dealers don't feel that way. Some manufacturers don't feel that way. The reason is that there are several manufacturers who had very aggressive sales goals for the year that they haven't met. They were very aggressive. So they feel that they haven't met their sales goals, therefore the market's down, because their projections were off. The other thing is that we're seeing this great influx of dealers now. It's not uncommon for me to talk to dealers in small towns like mine and say, gee, there was only one of us here last year. One fellow at one of the dealers yesterday was saying there were 3 dealers in his town a year ago at this time. There are 11 in his town right now. Now that's necessary to get deep market penetration and contact with all consumers, but it also makes it vital that dealers really be sharp.
Howard also gave a prediction for the latter part of this year.
I think we're going to see more and more consolidations between companies this year. We're going to see some reorganizations among companies. We're going to see shifts in marketing and sales techniques. These are going to continue through this year and into the next year. So you want to examine very carefully the people you're doing business with if you have a long-term interest.
Space is working toward creating a national standard for dealers through its dealer certification courses. Chuck Hewitt tells about the classes.
The dealer certification course is, I think, probably one of the most important things that we've ever done or may ever do. In essence, to sort of put it in form, what it means is that there are 10 courses offered. There are 5 required courses, and then you have elective of 2 others, with 7 all total. Once a dealer has gone through those 7, we certify him as being going through the coursework. Why this is important is that this is creating a national standard for education and performance part of dealers. And it's important to create that standard. We're having more and more states today who are looking at licensing of dealers. And it's nothing wrong with licensing so long as it's licensing to ensure quality, not licensing to prevent people from entering a marketplace. We've had one state that is very clear is what they want to do is stop our dealers from competing with existing consumer electronics people. So what we want to do is create a national standard. We want that to be used in licensing where states are going to license. And more importantly, we want to provide the dealer with the basis knowledge so that he can do his job technically and provide the service necessary for him to stay in business and perform the services for the consumer that they need for him to stay in business. Ultimately, for the dealer, we think it provides him a major advantage both in terms of knowledge to perform his services and to be a good business person. But also we think that he will be able to promote the fact in his community that he has gone to the effort, made the commitment, the time, the money to go through the proper education courses, and that he can promote this in his advertising. He can put this on his store windows, that he's gone through this coursework. He can display his certificates and this kind of thing, and that he's really done what's necessary for him to perform the services that he's going to sell to his customer. So we think there's a benefit all the way around to the consumer, and ultimately to the industry, and especially to the dealer.
And what about the uplink? When is that going to be?
The uplink, and the reason we're uplinking is it provides us an ability to get it on a mass scale to a larger number of dealers and get them certified earlier. The first uplink is July 27, 28, and 29. They should contact their distributor to see if that distributor is carrying on a downlink program. If that distributor is not, contact us and we'll put you in touch with the distributor that is going to provide a downlink and the closest to you. We are scrambling the signal, and I probably should explain why. The scrambling the signal is for two reasons. We certify that a dealer has gone through the necessary work to be qualified. We do not certify that he's qualified. The reason that is that if we certified that a dealer was qualified, we would take on liabilities of the performance of that dealer, as well as we can get involved in antitrust issues when one dealer flunks and one dealer does not flunk. So there are major legal reasons that we have to certify only that the dealer has gone through the proper coursework. We do not certify that they're really qualified. The reason we're scrambling is that the only way we can guarantee that the dealer sat through the proper coursework is to scramble it and keep control over the dealers as they sit in the room. And they sit in the room and they take a test, and the test is to provide us the information that he not only sat in the room, he didn't sleep through the 4 hours. So it provides us that he did listen, he did gather up the data and the information during it. But the test doesn't say he's, quote, qualified in that particular course. That is one reason. The second reason is scrambling is coming. The premium programmers will scramble. There's no doubt about it. We're fighting to ensure we're guaranteed access of all this programming. Basically, we no longer have that problem. But we are concerned about competition, and we are concerned about access at a reasonable fee. So we're fighting for that issue. And we feel that since scrambling is coming, we need to understand it. So it provides us a mechanism to practice the scrambling. Our dealers need to understand it, because sometime they're going to have to service those boxes, they're going to have to know how it works, they're going to have to know how it operates. And at the same time, when we go on the Hill, our position is we're not opposed to scrambling, we're opposed to unfair distribution and outrageous rates to the consumer. So when I say that scrambling is coming, I'm saying scrambling is coming for the premium programmers. You know, we are going to fight to make sure that as few programmers scramble as possible outside of the premium programmers. We believe they do have a right as premium programmers to scramble because they're paid services, and that's the only way they get paid. But basically, the certification program is scrambled for those two basic reasons.
Coming up on Satellite Showtime, the Calltronics video newsletter with Joe Kelch.
Are you confused about satellite programming guides? Are you tired of monthly inaccurate guides that are big and bulky and about as much fun to use as a city phone book? How about tabloids with hard-to-read print, incomplete movie listings that are about as easy to use as a road map? Or newspaper guides with confusing grids that fall apart in your hands? There is an alternative. Onset, the easy-to-read, easy-to-use weekly programming guide with more movies and sports. Best of all, Onset is only $39. That's right, 52 issues for only $39. But don't take our word for it. We'll send you a free copy of Onset, and you can judge for yourself. And if you're a dealer, ask about our dealer program. Make your customers happy and make money. Call Onset now. Toll-free 1-800-438-2020 or write Onset, Box 2347, Shelby, North Carolina, 28150. Onset, you've seen the rest, now try the best.
Good evening and welcome to Qualtronics Video Newsletter. Well, we're back from the Tulsa show, namely the hat. We want to tell you about these trade shows. For many of you out there have not been to one, and many of you are consumers and probably won't be getting to one at least soon. First of all, it's something like a family reunion where there's an exchange of family news, you meet the new in-laws, and exclaim over the new arrivals, the new babies on the market, the new products. What sort of a show was Tulsa? It was a good one. It was good in this respect. Some people said the dealer turnout wasn't as great as they expected, but the quality was there. In fact, we have a few quotes here. Less dealers than anticipated, but one of the best shows nonetheless. One of the better selling shows we've ever had. A great opportunity to meet and reaffirm our relationship with our distributors. And finally, more orders written than at any other previous show we've ever attended. And these people have been to 4 years of them. It was a good show and in a good city. Thank you, Space and STTI, for hosting. And thank you and hats off to Tulsa. It's a good city. The Trans 10 by Qualtronics, quality, performance, and strength, and all at a highly competitive price. Engineered for maximum durability and reflective surface, also extremely easy to look at. Baked acrylic, thermoset black finish, low luster appeal. A parabolically formed hub, prime steel, and a solid 14.5 inches in diameter. Ribs of superior strength tubular 16-gauge steel encased in polytrans vinyl. Full half-inch unobstructed mesh retaining channels. The patented rib design assures maximum reflector signal and better retention of panels in high wind areas. UPS shippable anywhere in this country. The Trans 10 by Qualtronics. High performance and strength. Tested and approved to withstand wind velocities up to 90 miles an hour and approved for 2-degree spacing by the McDonnell Douglas Corporation. Yes, the Trans 10 with a limited 5-year warranty is your best buy of all mesh antennas on the market. The Trans 10, the antenna for every season. In a recent interview, we talked with Vice President of Qualtronics, Ross Halverson. The subject was testing, the importance of testing to a manufacturer. We were talking at that time about the Trans 10 of Qualtronics and the fact that it had been tested for wind load and passed the test with flying colors, 90 miles an hour wind load capacity. Well, he told us at that time why testing is worth the expense and the trouble for a manufacturer. And in his explanation, Ross mentions Ken Wilcox, who is the man who actually did the testing. So the time and expense that, for instance, Qualtronics went through is well worth it.
Oh, I think it's money well spent. I really do, and it's by far a big expense. There's a lot more to it than people realize. I think that anyone that is manufacturing antennas is going to have to pay that price. I think that as time goes on, the consumer is getting by far a better education every day out there with this type of product. And they're starting to look for those certifications, like, for instance, a 2-degree certification. I think that's a must for a manufacturer. Like the wind loading. I think it's, and the manufacturers out there, it's good because it makes everybody's product better. It makes it what it's supposed to be. And I would like to see more manufacturers get certification on their product. It's a price you're going to have to pay, and it's going to get to a point, I think, where the consumer is going to say, he's going to look at it at a manufacturer, and if he doesn't have that approval or some good reputable certification on that unit, it's almost going to be admission by the manufacturer that he's not confident enough of the structural capability of his unit.
One thing that you brought up when we discussed this was that the full frontal wind on the antenna is the is the easiest to survive.
It really is. That's one of the things that Ken Wilcox told me as I described to him how other units that we know of in the industry had been tested. And he said, after he had been partway into to the calculations, he said, you know, he says, that's a smart way to test a dish. And I said, well, why is that? And he says, because that is the strongest focal point that the wind can really hit. That's where your dish is the strongest, is a direct blast right into the face of the antenna.
Mm-hmm.
He described it to me as being like a plastic cereal bowl. He said you can flip it over and set it on the table, and he says you can really put a lot of pressure on it and you're not going to smash it. But he says take that from the side, tip it up on edge, and you can bow it right together like this here.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a good point that he made to me that I had not thought about. You know, as far as testing an antenna, I guess, you know, if you wanted to take the economy route, you could probably put it on a trailer and go down the road 90 miles an hour. I don't know.
Okay. One other question or comment from you, I think. Qualtronics has a history now of wanting to test out its antenna. Could you say a word about that?
Well, John is the kind of guy that he believes in quality. In fact, we started out with the stainless steel antenna, and I don't think anybody has exceeded the quality on that unit yet. So we've always built our reputation and name on quality, and in the fast-changing manufacture of antennas, what we're finding is that you have to achieve quality with more cost-efficient materials all the time, and it becomes harder. It definitely becomes harder. You can't make things, you can't keep making things lighter and lighter and expect them to be as strong.
Mm-hmm.
There are means of manufacture where you can take lighter products through a better design and achieve that strength.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where the industry is headed. And I think that I think we're doing as well as anybody, and the need is there. And I think we're picking up on it, and we're trying to be as cost efficient to maintain the competition. And but the testing, I think, not only for our own self-satisfaction that we feel good about the product we sell, but for the consumer out there, they have something to look at and some confidence in a product and a manufacturer, and they can feel that their dollars are being spent as efficiently as they can spend them.
Interesting subject, and thanks very much, Ross. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Joe.
Ross Halverson, Vice President of Qualtronics. Now we're inviting John Call back. John is President of Qualtronics. His comment editorially tonight is on scrambling.
Thanks. I'd like to take just a couple of minutes to talk about a concern that seems to be a real stumbling block for some of you dealers out there, and it's a concern that we share here at Qualtronics, and that's the big bugaboo that's passing around right now about scrambling. I think there's a couple of things that need to be said about it that have been said in the past that I think need to be re-emphasized. Number one, the scrambling scare that's been going around, or the threat of it, has been with us since we started in the very beginning years, 5-6 years ago. And it's going to stay with us to the point when we stop letting it bother us and go on about our business the way we know that we can. The signal is up there. It's one of the best ways to get programming to the individual, and there's, in my mind, no way that this scrambling is going to be the big threat that everybody seems to make it be. When the programmers realize that they've got a tremendous market out there and that they're going to have to be competitive priced, they will be. There's no way that they're not going to try to capitalize on the homeowners right now. And if we let that intimidate us, we're doing exactly what they want us to do. I feel that we need to get the word out to the people that are buying systems that there's tremendous amount of programming that is still available if the 4 programmers that talk about it do scramble, and that it will be available later on with descramblers. And I think we need to get this message out and really go for sales. We've noticed, I was here one evening when there was a call-in, and the question was, what will scrambling do to sales? And the feeling that I got, I was answering the phone on some of the calls, that that it was not that big of a thing. That the scare that they're putting in people is not that much of a problem. I think there's what the dealers that I talked to that called in, that had the positive attitude and approached it the right way, are successful. And the ones that are having a problem are the ones that are making the problem bigger than really what it is. We just need to pull in and tell the truth to the consumer and sell them a good product. There's a tremendous amount of growth potential, and we just need to go after it. And we at Coltronics are going to do everything we can to get the right word out through this program and through our advertisement and through the show seminars. And I think you dealers need to do the same thing. And for you consumers out there watching the program, pass the word to your neighbors. Write your congressman and join Space. Let's all pull together and do a heck of a job and get the word out there. Thanks much.
Well, last week we spoke briefly about the poor press, or largely missing press, that we've been getting from the industry. We think it's unfair, and this week we had a staring and startling example of that. "The bloom is off satellite home TV," reads the headline in a lot of papers that you received because it was Associated Press release by J. Arnold. Just let me read this first paragraph. This man is uninformed, misinformed. He's a good writer, but not a fact. Satellite-to-home television, which once promised movie-quality images in millions of American living rooms by the end of this year, has been dealt a series of blows that may have killed the space-age delivery system in its infancy. What a start. People that read it and don't know might be worried. This man is talking about three different things, and he's about a year or two late. He's talking about Q-band and the slow start it's been having in the industry. C-band isn't even mentioned. The second paragraph, starry-eyed entrepreneurs who waxed poetic about DBS for direct broadcast satellite in the early 1980s have since had their hopes dashed by back-breaking startup costs, the marketplace saturated with new home entertainment systems, and the tremendous growth of the true showstopper of the 1980s, the video cassette recorder. How about this? It's obviously not going to be the huge new frontier an awful lot of people had presumed, nor is it going to be the near-term threat to existing technologies that a lot of people had hoped. He's on and on about Q-band and his misinformation from a few sources in the industry. And finally, he said something that is really rankling. DBS advocates covet the estimated 30 million U.S. homes that, because of geography or economics, may never be reached by cable TV. Already, tens of thousands of large backyard dishes are pirating satellite signals that pay TV companies beam to central cable distribution centers. As I said, this must have been pulled out from last year when somebody wanted to write a negative story about our industry. Since when does the action of last October by Congress still merit a reference to pirating satellite signals? If you have a contact in your hometown where the Associated Press has a contract, please let them know that you're unhappy about this sort of thing. Thank you. While we were out at Tulsa at the trade show, we had the opportunity to talk with a New York distributor, Don Doney. Meet Don. Don Doney of Satellite Video Services up in Catskill, New York. Is that upstate New York, Don?
Yeah, we're about 100 miles north of the city.
And you're a typical early bird in the industry.
Yeah, I guess you could put it that way.
Put a little bit of history through us now.
All right, Satellite Video started as a retail operation about 5 years ago, and we evolved to the point where people were coming to us for information and also on what products to use, and we started determining that they should use specific products, and so we started wholesaling to them, and now we have 4 locations: Altoona, Pennsylvania, Raymond, New Hampshire, Western New York office we just opened a month ago in Hornell, which is about an hour south of Rochester, and of course Catskill, New York, in the Catskill Mountains.
Great. What sort of a market do you have out there? Knowledgeable people?
Well, yes, we have a knowledgeable marketplace because we've trained the people and helped give them the knowledge. And also there's been a lot of exposure lately, and with some things like the space training program and other training programs and more publications out, the dealers are becoming more and more knowledgeable all the time. Not only in satellite, but also in marketing and how to be professional and how to sell and make a profit, which is also very important in keeping our industry vital.
You play a part in educating them, right?
Oh yes, active role. We have a number of different seminars at our different offices. All the offices carry seminars, and they're weekly seminars. And we rotate between 4 different seminars every month.
Great.
And it's a very extensive training program that's all free. And the reason why we do it is because we feel that we are the source for the dealer's information. If we can help them become professionals, which is so necessary, and help them sell and install equipment properly, organize their businesses properly, then we will be profitable along with our dealers.
That's excellent.
In the past, behind the rest of the market, as far as the United States is concerned, we used a lot of fiberglass because of our harsh weather. But now the mesh has definitely taken over, the aesthetics. And also people realize that with the perforated aluminums and so on, you still have the strength that you need to stand up to the weather. And again, the aesthetics are so important.
They are. Just a word about Qualtronics. You're a distributor.
Yes, we are. Master distributor for Qualtronics.
Great. And the stainless steel is still a standby, but mesh is definitely making its inroads.
Absolutely. It's an excellent product that we're very happy with. We enjoy a lot of support from Qualtronics, as well as the other manufacturers that we represent. And they have given us the opportunity with Qualtronics, for instance, Uniden and Maycom and Luxor, have all given us the opportunity to promote the product properly, to get the dealers the proper literature and so on to promote their products and help expand the marketing of the entire business.
Good. Now let's look at the general industry itself. What is the most encouraging thing that you see about the industry at this point in 1985?
Well, I would have to say that that the marketing accomplishments that have been made in the industry, getting consumer awareness up, is very encouraging. Also, the dealers have become more professional. They have to be professional in order to last, and they have to build dealerships that they can be proud of, and that they will have customers come back time and time again with more sales. And I feel very confident that the dealers are doing a very good job on increasing their business by becoming more professional, and that really makes me, I'm very excited about that. The fact that people are now learning more, not only just technical aspects about satellite, but also how to market the product.
Great. Would you say that there are any concerns that you might have or your customers might have, your dealers?
Well, I find that most of the concerns that are raised are short-term concerns at this point because of gray areas that we don't have answers for you. Yes, we have some new answers on scrambling. Yes, it's going to be a painful process, but yes, it's necessary to help not only legitimize the industry and the business, but also that's our first step to making a microwave communication link versus just a TV receive-only system. And
it's really an exciting industry, though, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Right. Thank you much.
You're welcome. I appreciate it.
Don Doney, Catskill, New York. Well, that's it for this evening's Qualtronics video newsletter. Hope you're in next week at the same time, same station.
Thank you, Joe. The Space STTI Tulsa show would not have been possible without the hard work of a lot of people. At the show, I was able to speak with its producer, Rick Schneringer. Rick Schneringer is the president of STTI, which is co-sponsor of the Tulsa show. You are the producer of the Tulsa show. Is that right, Rick?
Yes, that is true.
And STTI is the co-sponsor for it?
Yes, we work with our trade association, Space, of Washington, and they have their enhanced role operating all our activities on Capitol Hill. We do the trade shows, 3 a year.
And what does STTI stand for?
It stands for Satellite Television Technology International Incorporated. We really don't need that long a name, but it sort of fell into place, and we use STTI most of the time.
Okay. The first show was in Las Vegas. This is the second show, the Tulsa show.
That is correct.
When is the third show?
The third one will be the first week in September at the Opryland Hotel in Nashville, Tennessee. The third year that we've been at Nashville. A very popular place with our people, and it'll probably be one of the largest shows we've ever had.
Okay. What does it take to put together a show like this?
Well, Pat, about 4 months of operation and preparation. We do mailings all over the world. We have a mailing list of about 120,000 people who have been to shows or been active with us in one way or another. So they all get fresh mailings before each show of a brochure. And then we stay in touch in other ways, but we get people applying to come to the shows from all over the world, because it's a very international crowd. But we spend this 4 months preparing, then we don't know till the day of the show whether the crowd is going to come see us, but we've been very successful.
4 months for every show?
Yes, it takes about that much preparation. We operate out of our home there at Arcadia with a staff of fine women who are housewives from neighboring towns, and it ranges up to maybe 15, 18 people working on this at that point, and they get the results. They're very good at what they do.
What do you like best about putting on a show such as this one?
What is what now?
What do you like the best about doing
The
this?
number of new friends you make. I have never seen so many people that we've become friends with who've started out maybe in a very small way in this industry as dealers or something, and then go on and become very successful. I've seen more young millionaires made in this game in the last 5 years than anything I've ever witnessed. And we've seen them start maybe with nothing, and we've had trouble getting shoes on some of them. I'm being facetious, but maybe they came in blue jeans. Now they're wearing three-piece fine suits and flying their own 2-engine airplanes. We love it.
Next week on Satellite Showtime, Mike Gustafson will tell you how a home TVRO system works. Also, we'll take you back to Tulsa and we'll give you the latest in industry news. Until then, good night.